There are always one or two key moments this season following Town where events appear to go against us. If you're anything like me, you think back years later and wonder what might have been had the fates conspired the other way around. So here's my top 10 list of ITFC sliding doors moments in my time watching the Blues. Number 10. Paul Hursts Ipswich lose at Rotherham. Town's new era in 2018, post Mick McCarthy, couldn't have gone any worse. For former manager Paul Hurst, an early away defeat to Rotherham, albeit unjust, may end up being the crossroads moment for his brief Town career. His protracted appointment, along with a huge turnaround in the playing staff, put Town on the back foot before a ball had even been kicked in the 18-19 season. Big name departures were replaced with unproven lower leaguers in what turned out to be a kamikaze move by the Yorkshiremen. Town dominated their second league game away against the Millers, having the bulk of the possession and the chances, but they failed to seize the initiative. In predictable fashion, the home side nabbed all 3 points with a last-minute Michael Smith goal. Despite a minor morale boost in the 1-1 draw with Norwich, it took Hurst's team 13 attempts to register a victory, a fortunate 3-2 away win at Swansea. But after that, Town's season never kicked into life, and after a run of uninspiring performances, Hurst was eventually relieved of his duties after predictable defeat away to Leeds. Had his side deservedly won that game at Rotherham, would the resulting confidence boost have given the players new hope to secure more points? We'll never know, but it's clear that Hurst's approach didn't really give him much of a chance at Town. Number 9. Mark Stein relegates Sheffield United. This might seem a strange one, but it's difficult to argue that surviving the drop on the last day of the 93-94 season ended up being a positive for the Blues. Going into the final day of that season, Town found themselves one place outside the drop zone by a single point. The Blues had a tough ask on paper, an away trip to second place Blackburn, who had gone to be title winners the following season. But they managed to secure a credible 0-0 draw. Former Norwich boss Mike Walker's Everton had secured a home win to Wimbledon, taking them out of the drop zone. And as it stood with Sheffield United still playing and drawing 2-2 at Chelsea, Town were down. With the Blues relying on others to keep them up, this goal in stoppage time at Stamford Bridge from Mark Stein saved the club's blushes and cruelly relegated the Blades in our place. Fast forward to the same time a year later and Town were long relegated. John Lyle admitted to the players they were lucky after their Blackburn escape, and the 94-95 season that followed proved it. 7 wins, 6 draws, but an eye-watering 29 defeats. That relegation near miss at Blackburn should have set alarm bells ringing behind the scenes at Portman Road. However, the most significant gesture from the club to attempt survival was the £1 million purchase of Steve Sedgley, when what was needed was a rebuild of the club from top to bottom. Had Town been rightly relegated instead of the Blades, would a proper rebuild a league below made the bounce back a lot easier, rather than suffering defeats in Premier League to teams starting to outspend them. On the flip side, we would arguably have missed out on George Burley and his era to take us to the Premier League in the 2000-2001 season. Number 8. Liverpool run riot. Another Premier League relegation situation here, this time where Town dropped down a division. Town had started their 2001-2 season following on from an amazing 5th place finish in pretty terrible fashion. The Blues managed only one win leading up to the weekend before Christmas and found themselves bottom of the league, 7 points from safety. Sounds familiar. Burley's side then went on an amazing winning run through to early February, with only Charlton managing to stop the Blues along the way. After defeating Everton at Goodison Park, Town faced their Scouse neighbours Liverpool at Portman Road. Having been bottom and 7 points from safety in December, Town went into this 12th, 5 points above the drop zone. What followed was an epic collapse, starting with this 6-0 spanking from Liverpool. All the confidence built up in the winning run into the new year evaporated. A week later, Town were humbled by Chris Marsden and Southampton and went on another run of no wins, finally ending in April at home to Borough. After that game, Town were 18th, 2 points from safety, and ending the season with unfortunate defeat to Man United, and then Liverpool sent the Blues down with another thrashing. This relegation had dire consequences for Town, and arguably came at the worst possible time after the failure of ITV Digital and the club sinking significant sums into a redevelopment of Portman Road. 2 months into the next season, 2000-2001 LMA Manager of the Year, George Burley was sacked. In the following February, Town entered into administration after failing to sell off their prize assets. Whilst it's hard to cite a single football fixture for the financial failures, which have scuppered the club up until the point of Marcus Evans' takeover in 2008, it's certainly fair that relegation could have been avoided without that massive setback in the 6-0 defeat to the Reds and the resulting run that followed. Number 7. Kevin Phillips joined Sunderland. A classic what might have been moment here. Not for the first time, Town had a prospective signing in the Portman Road car park ready to join the club. And again, not for the first time, Town dallied and were gazumped by another club. My first known instance of this was one Kevin Phillips. Town saw enough potential in the former non-league striker to make a speculative offer in the summer just before the 97-98 season. This was initially enough to encourage the Hornets to allow the Blues to discuss terms with Phillips, which were duly agreed. However, at the 11th hour, recently relegated Sunderland increased on Town's offer by as little as a rumoured £75,000. With Phillips in limbo and still in IP1, Peter Reid got the deal done over the phone and the striker was off to join the Mackhams. The rest was history for Phillips. He had a scoring ratio of almost 1 goal every 2 games in the league during his 6 seasons up north, securing the Premier League Golden Boot in 99-2000 for a stunning 30 goals in 36 games. For ITFC, the 97-98 season started in inconsistent fashion, and Town were in need of more goals, and missing out on Phillips was looking like a disaster. On the 13th of November, Burley finally acted and brought in Bury striker David Johnson, and missing out on Phillips was suddenly consigned to the history books. Number 6. Ian Westlake hits the post. It wouldn't be an Ipswich Town top 10 video without some playoff heartache, but it's a case of Blues midfielder Ian Westlake nearly salvaging our 2003-04 promotion bid, but for the width of a post. Town had a 1-goal advantage going into the second leg of the playoff semi-final against West Ham, and it kept the home side at bay for another half at the Bowling Ground. But the game was to change shortly after half-time, with a spectacular strike from Matt Etherington, and 20 minutes after that, Christian Daly's deflected goal put the Hammers in front for the first time in the tie. With only injury time remaining, this looping volley from Ian Westlake cracked the post and bounced out, and moments later the game was over. It's included here as arguably the most marginal moment, the width of that post, with the biggest knock-on consequence: failure to reach the most profitable football match in the game. The Hammers would then go on to lose to Ian Dowie's second half season wonders Crystal Palace, but in a one-off game, who knows what Town could have achieved had they managed to get past West Ham in that playoff semi-final. Number 5. Bargain buys in 2014-15. This campaign was Town's most recent and last opportunity to finally escape a decade of second-tier football. Town went into January second in the league, 1 point off the top and 2 points clear of third. A taxing 2-legged cup defeat to Southampton, though, led to injuries to both David McGoldrick and Luke Hyam. Town's form stuttered as well, with only 1 win in the month, and from the start of February, the Blues had dropped down to 4th and were 3 points behind. The season would ultimately end in more playoff disappointment, but the what might have been moment was that January window. Town brought in reinforcements, but it was quantity over quality, with frees or loan players who'd been discarded from other championship clubs. Freddie Sears was the only player who was signed for a reasonable fee, and whilst all these players contributed during the remainder of the season, arguably none of them improved the quality of the squad overall. What if McCarthy and Evans had signed players who actually lifted the quality and increased the competition for starting places in the squad? Cover was certainly needed for Daryl Murphy, whose unparalleled scoring run in the 14-15 season was carrying the club. True creative quality in central midfield to supplement the industry of Cole Scouse had long been missing. Finally, McCarthy continued to select players arguably out of position at right back. Luke Chambers, who had long been converted to a centre back, and Jonathan Parr, a versatile wide midfielder who was able to drop back as cover. In the end, the run of 9 wins in the second half of the campaign saw Town fall out of automatic promotion contention. Even the playoff place was significantly in doubt, but it was retained on the last day thanks to another Derby County bottle job. Number 4. The departures of Richard Wright and James Scowcroft. It's hard to think of a better season for Ipswich in recent memory than 2000-2001. Promoted from Division 1 at the 4th time of asking the season before, with the bookies' favourites for the drop, Burley's side shocked everyone, Town fans included, by storming the top flight in their first season back. Homegrown talent has always been key for the Blues, and it was the transfer of Kieran Dyer which bankrolled promotion, and the consistent form of James Scowcroft and Richard Wright at the spine of Burley's attacking team that won promotion. Surpassing that 5th place finish was always going to be hard, so Burley and Sheepshanks formed a plan to give Town more strength and depth and increase the amount of European experience at the club in advance of a prospective UEFA Cup run. These plans were dealt a huge blow when Arsenal firmed up their interest in Richard Wright with a bid. Wright's departure was significant. The Town defence was rock solid in that 2000-2001 season, conceding only 42 league goals, giving the Blues the 5th best defensive record in the league, matching their league table finish. Removing Wright was deeply unsettling, and Town's goals against was the joint worst in the Premier League in 01-02. Ex-Canary freebie Andy Marshall never played himself into any form. An unknown Italian goalkeeper Matteo Serini, who signed days before the season started, was an unsettling influence. But Town missed Scowcroft. The frontman's work rate, physicality and guile made him an underestimated player with Town. His game was less about the goals, though he scored his fair share, and more about his industry. Scoey brought the best out in those around him, particularly in the promotion season, with David Johnson, Richard Naylor and eventually Marcus Stewart benefiting by playing alongside him. Would Town have been more resilient in 2001-2002 with Wright and Scowcroft in the team? Almost certainly. For me, it was actually the club turning their back on the tried and tested formula which had delivered the club's sustained success during the 90s, which led to the club's rapid decline in that 2001-2002 season. Number 3. Mick drops the F-bomb. It's hard to say whether this would have been included in my list had Town's 18-19 season not turned out so terribly. Mick McCarthy's contract was up at the end of the 17-18 season, and despite increasing supporter disenchantment at the tedium of low-scoring pragmatic tactics, there was still the possibility that Marcus Evans and McCarthy would have sat down and negotiated him a new deal. This was until the infamous outburst to Town's away support at Carrow Road, which followed Luke Chambers' dramatic late goal, which at the time appeared to be an East Anglian derby winner. After some less than helpful chants from the away end earlier in the match regarding Mick's brand of football, the Town boss gave some back. Unfortunately for him, it was caught live by the Sky TV cameras and was quickly picked up by those on social media. Any opportunity for the club to rebuild the crumbling relationship between fans and manager, which had been attempted at times during the season, ended abruptly. A few weeks later it was announced that the club and McCarthy would be parting company. Knowing what we know now about the way the club worked during the McCarthy era, with him in charge of all footballing matters and with comparatively meagre resources, I wonder how many Town fans have now changed their opinion on Big Mick. The big question is how much the F-bomb expedited McCarthy's exit, and whether Evans would have actually offered a new contract if that moment hadn't happened. You then have to ask yourself whether the 18-19 season would have played out so terribly had Mick still been in charge. Number 2. Chef Kikuchi gets injured. We're back to the mid-noughties again, and Town were in a title fight until things took a horrible turn in February 2005. Town were a staggering 5 points clear at the top after victory over Leicester on the 18th of February, but that victory came at a cost, an injury to star striker Chef Kikuchi. The injury would precede a 3-match losing run, culminating with a pivotal 1-0 away defeat to fellow title challengers Wigan. Town had gone from top to third and 5 points clear to 3 points off second place while the Finn was in the treatment room. It was a critical turnaround in Town's season, one of their best points-wise this century, and one which set the club on a course to the playoffs as rivals Wigan and Sunderland, managed by Paul Jewell and Mick McCarthy respectively, maintained their form. At the end of the 2004-05 season, after inevitable playoff defeat, Town's prize assets jumped ship to Premier League clubs. Darren Bent and Kelvin Davis were sold for multi-million-pound fees, while Kikuchi himself and midfield gold machine Tommy Miller left for nothing at the end of their contracts. Town should have been promoted that season and have never come so close since. Number 1. The Marcus Evans takeover. We're f***ing loaded! Chant the Town fans away at Norwich in early November 2007 as news broke of reclusive millionaire businessman Marcus Evans' prospective takeover of Town. With over 10 years passed since this takeover, and Town in their lowest ebb as this video is recorded, a lot of people are asking themselves who is to blame for this slow spiral down the division. Arguably, Evans didn't help himself early on. He made a succession of what appeared prudent executive appointments, none with any footballing know-how, and crucially, not underpinned with any kind of hierarchy or strategy. CEOs came and went, and managers came and went, and all were unable to deliver on Evans' aim of a swift promotion to the Premier League. Fast forward to recent years, and that promotion optimism has all but evaporated. Town have fallen back in the pecking order, with Evans' budgets being dwarfed by those with less risk-averse management structures or his Premier League parachute payment backing. The lack of open communication to the club supporters has not helped. Evans' response to what is looking increasingly like a relegation in the 18-19 season will be telling. The Town owner needs to back Paul Lambert, if he stays, so the club can bounce back at the first opportunity. Ultimately, it's not unreasonable for Town fans to have expected better from the Evans era and wonder what might have been if his takeover had not happened, and I wonder whether Marcus does too. So that's it. Have I missed any others? Do you have any different viewpoints on how things could have turned out? Let me know in the comments. And please subscribe to our channel for plenty of ITFC and Championship content. Follow us at Blue Monday ITFC and me at Ipswich. Thanks for watching.